attorney's interpretation was, and they could read that, but it cast it all in a different light. I think anybody that look at their charges, some people aren't going to like the charges because they, given the nature of their property, they're going to be large and sometimes they're going to be incredibly small, but the village did not design the exemptions. The village did not propose the exemptions. The village took the exemptions that were provided in the permit to us, and we exempted those from our consideration. The only, we follow these things, federal statutes and what they provided, Clean Water Act only applies to point sources. And that's specific, places where pollution is coming into the water system. And agriculture runoff specifically was not described in the Clean Water Act. It was only those agricultural uses that related to the large animal, the great big milking operations where they had more than 1,000 animals. And in that case, if we had one as a village, we would monitor that, we would permit that, we would bill that, and we'd make sure that the runoff from that type of operation wasn't causing us any problems. So while stormwater from ag fields is generally exempt, some stormwater runoff is regulated under that specific act. So there is an intentional look at agricultural runoff by the Clean Water Act, which is the overriding regulation that governs this. And they made that definition, that separation between large animal operations and general farm operations. And they exempted general farm operations from the regulations. And they included the water operations in there. It would seem to me, and our attorney agrees with this, if in fact the federal government had included everything in there, or at the worst, if everything was in there, then everything's in there. Or at the worst, if they didn't include large animal operations, at that point you'd be stuck with, well, do they mean agricultural or not? They've looked at it and they've excluded it. In Wisconsin, the law does not have an exemption that is as clear as a federal provision, even though we're subject to the federal provision. But the result is the same. In Wisconsin, the definition of point source solution in the statutes is in 283.01, parent 12. Includes concentrated animal feeding operations as point sources, but excludes stormwater except as regulated under another statute, which is 283.33, parent 1. That statute applies to stormwater from industrial sites in municipalities, not agriculture. So again, the Kenosha News took it upon itself to say, since it wasn't in a permit, you can still charge for it. Again, if you're not going to regulate somebody, if you're not going to monitor them, if you're not going to permit them, by and large, because they're under a federal they're under federal exemption, what we would be doing, and I think what their surveys show is you go ahead and bill them regardless for a service they don't use. And nobody within the stormwater utility that is outside the exemptions is treated that way. Either you're billed or you're exempt by a permit. I guess I take issue with some of the survey work that Kenosha News did. My experience is they'll find a group of communities that meet the purpose that they were looking for. We do know that, at least from our legal attorney's position, no one has as comprehensive a stormwater billing basis as Pleasant Prairie, but there are some that are fairly close to Pleasant Prairie, and that would be the city of Fitchburg, a similar sized community, and Bellevue by Green Bay, another similar sized community, where they exclude agriculture, and they go into not as much detail as we do in billing, but close to it. One of the things that, and it wasn't described in the Kenosha News article, and I don't know why, but there's a source of relief for people that we've identified, and as well as the state has identified, that people feel that the village has inequitably charged them for services that they're not receiving, or the charge is inequitable, or they're being treated differently, is to file for opinion from the Public Service Commission on whether or not the village has inappropriately applied the formula, or if the rates are out of question. And this is a utility. The Public Service Commission of the state of Wisconsin does have the authority, the ability, and mandate to do that as people submit submit those requests. And I would encourage, that's the ordinance, encourage people to do that if they feel that the village is not acting fairly in doing this. The statute that provides for PS review also defines the basic criteria that utilities use in settling stormwater fees, and those criteria are related to the generation of stormwater. So specifically, in the public service commission, you have the fees have to be related to how the stormwater is generated, and that's what the village does for that part of stormwater utility. I think that when we began this process, the village board undertook to take a look at a diverse mix of land uses: single-family residential, large lot residential, farmettes, big farms, all sorts of different type uses. And it was out of that evaluation of what type of property was built in Pleasant Prairie that led us to the conclusion that to do a per parcel charge, although convenient and simple, was not fair. The majority of the property owners in the village are in that $3, between $2.50 and $3.50 a month in their charges. To do a one-size-fits-all means that amount comes up to $10.74 a month. That person who lives on a quarter-acre lot is going to pay the same as someone who's at super value. I think to give short shrift to that concept shows that, one, I think the interest of fairness doesn't match up against the statutory requirement that if we're going to do this as utility, you can only bill for the services that we provide. And we've used the abilities that we have to take and manage the differences. And for anybody that's called us to say, I have a question, I think it's different, I think it's wrong, there's some other things you need to see, we've gone out there and did a physical inspection of it. And when the opportunities are to make a change, make a change. And it's not the end of the world for us. If it changes, it should reflect what it is. That's the basic premise that we adopted. We've had that ordinance and that premise for funding the stormwater utility. It was acted on initially by the town board to start the process. When we adopted the stormwater ordinance, along with the model ordinance, along with the stormwater management plan, all those documents were supported by this board unanimously, 5-0. Everybody that sat at this dais in 2006 and 2005 unanimously voted for all that work that was done. That's the underpinnings of everything we're doing. When we undertook the agriculture as required by the permit, we also exempted wetlands, ponds, lakes from the clean water utility. We've exempted a significant amount of wetlands from that the DNR holds. We've exempted a significant amount of wetlands that's owned by the Nature Conservancy. We've exempted a significant amount of wetlands that's owned by the University of Wisconsin. We've worked with those entities to identify specifically from their standpoint how much in the terms of area that they own as wetlands. Now, the Kenosha News reported that there was some dust up over the fact of what the city or the Village of Pleasant Prairie DNR were working on. There wasn't. It was just a matter of a lot of lots to look at and determine just exactly what was upland, non-wetland, what was lowland wetland, what was upland wetland. So all wetlands, regardless upland, lowland, were exempted. And to the extent that